There was a piece put together over the weekend by the Associated Press that I found very interesting. I hate to sound like, and I told you so, or I hate to sound like, well, it's about time everybody caught up to what Malloy has been saying for 35 years, but what the hell? I very infrequently do that, and usually it's about the same topic, this Christian fascism. So I see this article by the Associated Press, and I read it, and I'm going to share part of it with you here in a moment. But as I read it, I notice once again that the writers are kind of dancing around the terms that should be used. The headline of this piece says, Christian nationalism on the rise in some GOP campaigns. Okay? Now, in the first place, it may be, in its simplest form, Christian nationalism. But the complexity of what these demons are talking about raises it to the next level of madness, which is Christian fascism or fascist Christianity. And I just wish that the writers of these pieces and the opinion writers would start using what to me are the correct terms. Now, that's just my little personal wish, because I think that would be more shocking to people who would read about this stuff and would take notice. When they say Christian nationalism, I think a lot of people go, oh, well, Christian nationalism, okay, well, no big deal. At least they're nationalists. But it's not that. It's fascism. So what this article mentions is the victory party. After Doug Mastriano, this fascist Christian, won Pennsylvania's Republican governor's primary this month. It was a victory party, and according to writers of the Associated Press, it felt like an evangelical worship service. Yes, exactly. A Christian singer led the crowd in song, and the people in the crowd were doing that thing that they do that just turns my stomach, where they raise their arms toward the heavens, like, ah! When I see that, I just, so much of this posturing that's done by these fascist Christians is just enough to turn anybody's stomach, but certainly does mine. But Mastriano, when it came his time to crow and praise himself for his victory in the Republican primary, he started out by quoting scripture. And this is what he said, quote, God uses the foolish to confound the wise, end quote. I mean, do you get that? And he went on to claim that the freedom of people who live in Pennsylvania would be, his words, snatched away if his legitimate Democratic Party opponent wins come this November. And then this fascist Christian son of a bitch cast the election in straight up religious terms with another reference to the Christian Bible, when he said, quote, let's choose this day to serve the Lord, end quote. Do you remember, I wonder if you're old enough to remember the quaint old days where there was truly a separation of church and state. People simply did not talk about their religious beliefs outside of the religious community or their families. People did not get out in the public, whether they were a political candidate or a business leader or a politician, and start crowing about their Christianity and how much God had chosen them to be a senator or a representative or the president or whatever. Do you remember those times? I do. It was almost embarrassing to hear let me rephrase it. It was embarrassing to hear people talking about their close relationship with their Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I mean, it was like, can you take that where it belongs, into your own, as Jesus said, into your closet? That's where you should do your praying and your praising and your place of worship. Get it the fuck out of the public square. Now, of course, I was a kid back then, so I couldn't use the F word. But anyway, Mastriano, and this is the dangerous part, he's a fascist Christian, a state senator, and a retired Army colonel. There is probably the most lethal combination of neo-Nazism that you could put together. A fascist Christian and a retired Army colonel. Now, this guy not only displayed his fascist Christianity and made it central to his personal story in his campaign, but he wove fascist Christian beliefs and symbols into his gubernatorial campaign. And he became, because of that horseshit, he became the most prominent example, according to the Associated Press, the most prominent example this election cycle of what some observers call a surge of Christian nationalism among Republican candidates. That's the quote from the Associated Press. Some observers? Yeah, I guess that's right. Only those of us who are willing to speak out about this insanity and how threatening it is and how not of the teachings that we've been led to believe were those of Jesus, the rabbi from Nazareth. None of this shit that these people say has anything to do with that particular historical figure, Jesus of Nazareth. Nothing. So Mastriano, who has ignored repeated requests for comment from the Associated Press, I might as well tell you that right now. You know, they keep asking, they want to ask him about this bullshit. But he has rejected the label Christian nationalist. Well, fucker, it's not up to you. I mean, you're not the one. A tree doesn't say, well, I'm an oak tree. I mean, somebody comes along and labels it as such. You are, Mastriano, a Christian fascist. That's exactly what you are. So it doesn't make any difference if you reject the label. In fact, none of these prominent fascist Christians have the courage to use the label, to say, yeah, I'm a Christian nationalist. Now, they're not going to say they're a fascist Christian. That's not going to happen. But to come right out and say, yeah, I'm a Christian nationalist. Now, one of these sorry son of a bitches have the courage to say it. What's the matter? Why don't you boys and girls say it? Why don't you step right out and say it? Probably because you're afraid that your God would immediately send a fucking thunderbolt about 8 feet up your ass, and that would be the end of you, right? You think that's it? Maybe not. Some of these fascist Christians say that labeling themselves a Christian nationalist would be a pejorative. It would be something they don't want to call themselves. And they insist everyone has a right to draw on their faith and values to try to influence public policy. To which I say, you're out of your fucking mind. I don't grant that right to anybody. Keep your goddamn religion out of politics. Base your decisions on politics as to what would be the best way to proceed in the direction of a certain issue to better the citizens of this country. And religion has not a goddamn thing to do with that. You see how far they have drifted from the idea of social good rather than religious nuttery. But the Christian political agenda, and this is what has to be watched out for, if that's a clunky structure to that sentence, but this is what not only has to be watched out for, but there are warnings, there are blaring klaxons going off when they start talking about the Christian political agenda, because they're in opposition to a woman's right to privacy, because women are bitch demons who brought death to the Garden of Eden, brought death to the human race. Please remember that. In the Abrahamic religions, women brought death, and they have no business opening their mouths. Also, the condemnation in this fascist Christian political agenda of marriage equality. As though, I've said this so many times, the church does not make a marriage official. The fucking state does, not the church. So how does the church give itself the right to condemn an official proceeding by the state that joins two people of the same sex in a contract, which is all the fuck that marriage is a contract? But the fascist Christians, and not just the fascist Christians, but so many of the adherents to the Abrahamic religions have twisted marriage away from being a contract between two people and into something blessed by invisible beings floating around in the infinity or the universe somewhere. I mean, please. And then, of course, the newest thing is the right of people to live a fucking life who happen to be, and this is a label put on them by people who are not them, people who happen to be transgender. If someone feels that they are a woman trapped in a man's body or a man trapped in a woman's body, if that's not too simplistic, does that person have a right to experience life as they want to? Well, fuck yes. Life is so short anyway, short, nasty, and brutish. So who is to say? Who is to say that a person does not have a right to live his or her life as he or she feels is appropriate? The Christian nationalists feel that they have, the fascist Christians, they feel that they have a right not only to tell you that you may not be a transgender person, but they want laws passed to condemn you, to isolate you, to treat you as though you don't exist. That's Christianity? That's the teachings of the rabbi from Nazareth? I have to admit, I haven't read every word in the Bible, damn near, but I don't remember coming across any of that. And I honestly don't know where it says in the Bible that a marriage is between one man and one woman. But that's what the fascist Christians will tell you is right there, Malloy. If you're too blind to see it, that's your problem. So Christian nationalism, Christian fascism, I'm going to call it what I always call it, Christian fascism. It's also associated with being terrified of immigrants or Muslims or people of color. It is a racist, homophobic, insane fucking belief system. And the Christian fascists in this country see this filthy bastard Donald Trump as a champion, in spite of the fact that he would stick it in a wood pile if he thought there was a woman in there someplace. He is just a low-class, low-down, useless human being. And as predicted in the Bible, I guess this is a part that they overlook, these fascist Christians. But it was often stated that the Antichrist would appear in a form that disguised the fact that he was the Antichrist. And here he is. I mean, every fucking word that tumbles out of the orange vomit's gullet is destructive and violent and divisive and hate-filled and totally against what Jesus said. As you do this to the least of my brothers, you do it to me. And yet the fascist Christians suck up to this man. They love him. That's the real puzzlement to me. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.